Good afternoon and welcome. Hopefully there'll be more people to come into our conference on this very exciting topic, rebuilding America's infrastructure, challenges and opportunities. America's infrastructure is crumbling. Our sewers still discharge into waterways, garbage is still being dumped into landfills, and some 46,154 bridges in America are structurally deficient. Much of the national transportation system, bridges and tunnels, are in need of modernization. The passage of the $1.2 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill is a promising start, but it's not large enough to address some of the $2.3 trillion infrastructure investment gap, according to the American Society of Civil Engineers, underscoring the need to embrace more innovative practices to make our investment dollars go further, which is going to be a big topic of today's discussion. New York, unlike many other states, has been aggressive in investing capital in rebuilding our airports, upgrading our subway systems, and reimagining major infrastructure projects to revitalize the landscape of the city. In typical New Yorker style, when then Vice President Biden compared our airports to the third world, we took action. We acted, we improved, and I'm certain all of you agree, LaGuardia, JFK, Newark airports are well on their way to becoming state-of-the-art transportation hubs that we can all be proud of. Today, the goal of this panel is to discuss the future of Americans' infrastructure and how the public and private sectors can enhance rates of return on infrastructure investment. I'm Lisa Diaz, Managing Partner of Turf Advisory, and I'm going to be moderating today's discussion. Joining us today, we have Steve Plait, Chief of Major Capital Projects at the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, who has close to 40 years of extensive experience in project leadership and program management in both the public and private sector. Along his very long list of accomplishments, Steve was responsible for overseeing the World Trade Center reconstruction program and has helped to manage over $65 billion of major infrastructure projects. Elizabeth Velez spearheads strategic growth and project diversification for the 50-year-old Velez Organization as president and principal, ensuring that this second-generation construction services company is one of the most successful in the region. She is a member of the MTA board appointed by Governor Hochul, served as the COVID advisory boards under former Mayor de Blasio and former Governor Cuomo, and was formerly served as chair of the New York Building Congress. Marcos Díaz González is Executive Vice President at the STV, responsible for leading the firm's advisory and program management business. He has over 25 years of executive experience spanning the institutional, transportation, environmental, and governmental sectors. Some of his clients include New York Empire State Development Corporation, New York City Department of Design and Construction, New York City Housing Authority, Gateway, Amtrak, the Port Authority, the MTA, Lincoln Center, and the World Bank, among others. This is a very illustrious and experienced group. I hope you agree. Steve, let's kick it off with you. You've worked both on an extensive variety of major capital projects. Can we talk about one that's near and dear to many New Yorkers, including myself, namely the World Trade Center restoration project, which was clearly very emotionally charged as well as operationally challenging. I think we all agree it's a huge success and stands as a testament to the lives lost, as well as revitalizing downtown Manhattan. Can you talk about some of the lessons learned and please walk us through the project?
Surely. I remember I was finishing up a project as a relatively young man called AirTran JFK. It was right after the bombing, and everybody thought that was not going to be utilized. And it's extremely successful, moving up to 26 million people a year through that facility, all those people taken off the road. So all automated, 20 miles. And the reason I start with that, here I am, a relatively young man, and said, what am I going to do next? And they said, would you take on the World Trade Center? And mixed emotions. Obviously, I lost 80. Today's the appropriate day to be remembering that, since I spent yesterday at September 11 remembering those 3,000 people, 84 of my colleagues who I rode elevators with. And the job was probably it was the most complex engineering job ever done in the most wonderful city in the world. And my wife is a Queens girl and I'm a Bronx boy, so we went around the world and found out that there's no place like home, and that's New York City. And I know that's a little bit of a bias, but we always end up back at New York City. So we had the opportunity with her support to start to mobilize people. And when there was a grieving process. People say, what's taking so long? I got put in charge January 6th of '06. I do remember that date. And they said, get going. We've grieved, we've planned, we need to start building. And we started. And 26,000 people put not just their engineering and construction ability to it, but their hearts and souls. And it wasn't just people from New York City. It wasn't people from just the United States. It was from the world. People used to write notes on pieces of steel, wishing us in different languages best and Godspeed to continue through this. And we did every day, 24/7. We were writing checks for up to $250 million a month, which is unprecedented. We were able to deliver what you see there today. It was the tallest tower for a few moments in the world, Tower 1. We built 2 additional towers, which are all 3 are pretty much full at this point, or very close to being full. We're looking at the last 2 towers to move forward with. A great memorial to remember and respect those, the most important part of the project, those people we lost that fateful day in a very special way. And I'll digress a minute just to give you the nub of what I'd like to leave you with is that it was a great engineering, a great construction, great business, great financial. It was the most complex thing I've ever done in my life, and everybody involved with it. There was no book. But it was always about those 3,000 people and doing right by them. And no matter how difficult, my biggest challenge was getting people to go home. It was their passion. They never let go, and they delivered what you see today. And I welcome you all to come down and enjoy what we've delivered and remember those people in a special way. Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth, in your role on the board of the MTA, can you reflect upon the experience of building the 2nd Avenue subway? What were some of the major challenges? And looking forward to phase 2, first of all, is it going to happen? And if yes, what's the timing? And what does the MTA learn from the experience of building the first phase of the subway system? Which, by the way, if we as New Yorkers really appreciate this contribution to the city. It's fantastic.
Absolutely. And so more broadly, I hope everyone has had an opportunity, I know people are coming in from all over the country, to use our system, our transit system. It is, and I think I'm probably a little biased too, Steve, like you, I think it's the best in the world, 24/7 access. But above 2nd Avenue subway, really the transit system in New York City had been faced with decades really of neglect. And I know that a lot of people in the room can appreciate what we call the state of good repair. We can't move our folks from point A to point B unless the system is in a state of good repair. And so as we move looking forward, we're super excited. I am excited to be on the MTA board as we look towards important things like equity, accessibility, and good construction. And so as we look around and our platform, we have and I'm going to look at my notes just to make sure that I'm not quoting wrong, because it's impressive. Creating a $55 billion 5-year capital program to bring us up to a state of good repair, to keep our system running. Prioritizing, absolutely, I said accessibility, ADA compliance. And so that we believe that by 2055, we'll be 95% compliant in a subway system that has been around for decades. It's a tremendous achievement and a tremendous opportunity to move forward. In addition, we have changed the way that we build and how we vision projects. And so we're utilizing, and I think we'll speak a little bit more about this, integrated project delivery methods to be able to get projects out quicker, faster, schedule and budget compliant. In addition, innovation is a big part of what we do, and I know a lot of people in the room can appreciate the importance of innovation in everything that we do, and then also make long-awaited commitments to promote equity. And what is equity in transportation? It means transportation deserts throughout the city, that we bring people in, give them equal access to come in and use not only our city, but our region.
Thank you. Fantastic. Marcos. Among your many roles at STV, you lead and have created a digital transformation practice. McKinsey suggests that construction is among the least digitalized of the 26 different industry sectors. Can you kind of opine and think about why you started this division and offer some suggestions about how technology could be more aggressively integrated into the building of New York City's infrastructure, or New York's infrastructure?
Absolutely. So interestingly enough, on that report, I think the last industry was hunting. So that tells you something, that when you have construction engineering, and engineering is supposed to be on the bleeding edge on what we do on the built environment, and the fact that we're second to last on the digital transformation is a little bit challenging. So one of the things that I saw about a decade ago was a lagging indicator in automation and basically digital adaptation on just about every professional practice in the engineering planning architecture that deals with the built environment, vertical built environment, horizontal built environment. So why did I start a digital transformation practice within advisory within my firm, STV? We have funding, and we have incredible funding streams, especially now with the transportation law now in the US. We have great contractors, we have great engineering companies, we definitely have the framework and great clients. Two of them are here, so I have to say they're great because they're great. What we don't have are the resources right now. And frankly, I don't think we're going to have the resources for a number of years to come. And the reason for that is our universities are not preparing enough planners, enough engineers, enough architects, and they're definitely not preparing enough construction managers with the tools that they need, specifically the digital tools that they need to move the profession farther and accelerate the delivery of projects. So when people think about digital transformation, it's both an internal transformation that our companies in the private sector need to basically experience, is a transformation for our clients, and then is a transformation of the work product and the end result of the work product. So that transformation is both in the way we work, in the way we work with clients, and then in the way that the end user is going to experience that final asset. So why are we doing this? We do think is a growing business. We think it's something that will help us recruit and capture the young minds, the entry-level minds into the profession, so we don't lose them onto other exciting fields that are obviously still being developed and still growing. You have finance, you have a lot of other digital sectors within the industry that are obviously very attractive. But we think that within engineering development, design development, project controls, that we can actually step up the level as to what we do in the profession and how we do it to be able to hire and retain the young entry-level talent, and quite frankly, accelerate the delivery of projects for our clients. But that transformation has to happen in parallel, private sector, public sector. So I see it both as a need and a mandate in the private sector, but there has to be a corresponding push and investment also in the public sector, which quite frankly will help both sides of the equation rise to the occasion, because the biggest bottleneck that we have is a lack of qualified people to do the number of projects that we have to do moving forward.
So Steve, that's a good segue to you. So as Marcos mentioned, there's a lot of conversation in the AC industry that agencies like yours can be very instrumental in kickstarting use of technology on major projects through your RFP process, your procurement process, as well as fostering construction technology jobs in New York City. So can you talk about some of the programs that you're working on and how you as a major agency think about being a catalyst for more technology on construction?
That's a great question, and there's a long answer to that, but there's a good thing is there is a long answer to that. I came from private industry, worked for firms such as Exxon, so I traveled around the world and saw different things. And when I came to the agency some time ago, I challenged everything, and I encourage the young people to challenge me, the relatively new experienced people, because they have a different mindset, and they look at things differently, and they are the future. But we can learn from them. I learn every day. Now, specifically, we are at the cutting edge. Even World Trade Center, a project of that nature, even in an expedited fashion, takes quite some time. It takes years to do. Think of from 2000 to 2010. Cell phones, iPhones, LEDs, on and on and on, the technology changed. So while we were putting things in, someone said to me, I was just casual this, we were doing investigations, says, isn't there something called LEDs? And the fellow said, yeah, light emitting diode. And I said, well, we have thousands of light bulbs. And I don't know if you remember back, well, some of you won't, but in the original tower, they used to have a program where once a year they go and unscrew all the bulbs and replace them in a planned way. Now we don't touch them for obviously 8 to 10 years and use a lot less energy. Every one of our buildings were LEED Gold. We really stepped it up on that. Boingo came in and ran cables, so now they grab the data, and you know what happens with all that. Now, they said, I was about to look for other passengers, and they said, no, you have to stay now that you finished World Trade. They gave me a number of other programs, like the bus terminal. So now think about that. I mean, that is a project that really needs attention. We work closely with the community boards, who have been great partners and really helpful. And they've told us, we want you to be the catalyst that's going to transform this neighborhood. But you have to respect the neighborhood, which I can do because I come from an inner city of immigrant family who I understand how important their home was. So we threaded the needles with their guidance to come up with a facility that will enhance the neighborhood, provide for development in an appropriate way, and we'll have to be flexible because even the experts don't know where the market is going. And these are very dear friends of mine who I know for many years. In addition to that, things like you have to design it for what today. We have capacity right now. People talk about what kind of loads do we bring in. We bring 240 to 250,000 people into that bus terminal day with the ability and future predictions to go to 340,000. So that's a 30% increase. To that end, we just don't make it bigger, we make it more nimble. We reconfigure it with hard steel and concrete to make it more efficient. We also have technology. When we built AirTrain, you can actually get a train by looking at a computer and drop and click and bring that train over to an area that needs help. So that kind of technology. All beyond LEED Gold, zero emissions target, all electric building. Now, again, you have to, I always say this whenever I build something, this has to be good for 50, 70 years like the last one was. So we have to design what's there today, what's going to be there in 5 or 10 years, and what's going to be there in 50 to 70 years. So you start with diesel engines to hybrids to electric to articulated buses. So all of that has to be baked in so we do not preclude being able to do that. The experience we're striving for, we will accomplish it. We will accomplish it. As you look at your iPhone, you're sitting at your desk and you have to be home by a certain time. You know the subway. You know when that's coming because you have all the signs. You get there, you get on the subway, you get to the bus terminal, you pick up your latte, which you already paid for, and you jump on the bus and you're home exactly on time. So it becomes a full experience. So we want to get that information flow going back and forth to communicate to people so their experience becomes a very powerful one for us as planners, engineers, as in the roles we are, to make you have a great day as opposed to start the day off in the wrong foot. Getting to work when you anticipate getting to work or getting to where you need to be in a very positive way with a great experience, and to make the place be uplifting and make it be joyous. The building has served us well for decades, since 1950, but it's time. It's really time. And that's one of the last facilities we have to focus our energy on. I'll stop there, and that's only scratching the surface.
Sounds good. Elizabeth, as the MTA represents the region's most essential transportation system, innovation and capital planning is critical for the present and future of the MTA. What are some of the challenges and opportunities keeping this system working 24/7? And how do you upgrade it and keep it running at the same time?
Right. So innovation and transit, I think anywhere is a bit of an oxymoron, right? And so, but it's important. I love, Steve, you talking about, by the way, getting your latte after getting off of the subway. This is where we are, and this is what I think our society is coming to expect. So how do we bring innovation into the MTA? How do we bring it into transportation? So the MTA partnered with the New York City, the Partnership for New York, to create a tech lab, an innovation tech lab, transit tech lab, to look at what are the most pressing issues that are facing the MTA, and how might we be able to incentivize others to come in, innovators to come in, and test their products over an 8-week period of time. It's a win-win, public-private partnership. It's a win-win for the MTA. It's a win-win for New York, and it's a win-win for our region. So the tech lab focuses on issues that the MTA is facing that they're thinking need to be innovated. And in the last year, there were 2 issues. You won't be surprised. One of them was using, as we go forward recovery out of COVID, how do we use video footage to manage passenger flow, monitor passenger flow, and also look at unsafe behaviors. We're talking about coming onto the tracks. How do we use that? That was one of the innovative tech labs that was done over an 8-week period in the last year, already bearing fruit. And the other one was focusing on sustainability. So 3 companies are demonstrating innovative technologies for stormwater and flood monitoring and analytics. You don't have to read or look at the trends with regard to climate change to know that those kind of events can have a disastrous impact on our lives, but especially the transit system. And so we're now using innovation in a public-private partnership to be able to look at ways to mitigate those changes and eliminate those risks.
Pretty exciting. So, Marcos, turning to you. STV is directly involved, partly as a JV, some of the most transformational infrastructure projects in the region, such as the 2nd Avenue Subway, Gateway, and there's lots of discussion saying construction in New York is the most expensive in the world. In fact, the cost of tunneling in New York City is multiples of major other cities, Paris, Barcelona, Berlin. Can you tell us why? And also, can you offer some suggestions of, is there a way to reduce this cost and strategies to make, again, our capital dollars go further?
Absolutely. So obviously we're in a very complex region. I think the metro region, jurisdictionally is complicated. The amount of projects that are going on at any given time, especially mega projects, adds to the cost of delivery. There is no question about that. It's just a part of the market. But there are definitely a number of things that could be done, and I think some of them are already in progress. And I count on the 2 clients that I have here with me, the Port Authority and the MTA. They're definitely doing many of those things, but not every client does that. The first one is they're in earnest right now 2 bottlenecks that are going to be driving costs up in our industry for the foreseeable future. The first one I referred to before with my first answer, which was the lack of qualified professionals, and by the way, the lack of qualified professionals as well on the construction delivery side. There's just too much work that is incoming right now, and I think this is going to be a challenge to overcome. So that requires a very long-term view of the market, and it requires developing talent from an early age. It requires attracting people to our industry. So I'm the chair-elect of the ACE Mentor program, and that is one of the things that we're trying to do, is bring high school kids to get them interested into the engineering, planning, architecture, construction management professions. So you need to look at this bottleneck that we have on the talent side as almost a generational need and a generational effort. The other one is a matter of being able to anticipate when these projects are coming online. And as I mentioned before, Port Authority, MTA, they're actually very good at signaling when those projects are coming online. You usually have a good sense of when a qualifying stage is going to happen, a procurement is being structured. There's usually fairly robust industry feedback. That is great, but not every client does that, especially not every client in Metro New York and not every client in the United States. What is happening is just a supply and demand bottleneck that we have right now. We don't have the people to do the projects, and what we have is too many projects that are coming online, all of them at the same time, and the industry doesn't really know when they're actually going to be coming online. So those are two factors that will be driving prices up. What can the industry do? What can our clients do? I will argue, support us on the effort to prepare people, right? And again, that's a generational push. That's number one. Number two is to really do more and more industry outreach and then stick to the schedule, the procurement schedules that that you announce and when they get announced. So that requires more planning and better planning in general to move programs forward. But there's also a potential repackaging of projects, i.e. there are too many very large projects coming out all at once. And use every tool at your disposal, whether it's on the procurement side, design, bid, build, progressive design, build, but use the tool that is right for that particular project and that particular stage, and use all of your procurement tools to basically dial up or dial down the incoming flow of projects, because that is the biggest challenge that the industry have, and it's not just a pricing challenge, it's a partnering challenge. It is very difficult for the private sector right now to be able to decide a year in advance, 2 years in advance, when we're investing on a particular pursuit, trying to partner up for a major program. It is very difficult for us to be able to do that across 5 or 6 mega projects. We know we can only tackle 2 or 3, but we don't know exactly when they're coming online. So that is a comment that is not a suggestion for the 2 clients that are here sitting with me, because they already do that, but I think it will be in general to every client that has infrastructure dollars to spend. It is definitely to partner up on the development of the industry from the bottom up, announce, signal when the procurement is coming online, and then use every procurement tool that you have at your disposal. And that will create a right sizing of supply and demand right now within our professional services industry, the construction industry, and I do believe that it will actually draw the cost per linear foot down that we are seeing is really out of kilter in a market like New York City.
So there's basically...
I was just going to add to what Marco's saying, because the thing I've learned in life and in doing the jobs we do is if one of us fails, we all fail. Mm-hmm. Used to be back in the early days of construction, it's the contractor's fault, it's the designer's fault, it's the owner's fault. Well, you know what? It doesn't matter. We're a family. Mm-hmm. And when you get a project like some of the mega projects that you have, Elizabeth and the Marco, the ones that you deal with, you have to support each other like a family. When someone is hurting and can't get something done, you don't just pile on and blame them, you help them. So what we did at World Trade, we used to set up in the middle of the Oculus a table. We spent 8 hours with the contractors, the subcontractors, the union laborers, the owner, Port Authority, Silverstein Properties, and the designers. And we made people to make decisions on the spot, and we empowered them. And when they made a mistake, you didn't jump on it, oh, you made a mistake. No, we fix it. We fix it. My philosophy in life, if you hit the fork in the road, you got to take it. Go right or go left. Don't stand still when you got 26,000 people looking for direction and looking for guidance. And that paid huge dividends, because schedule is money, and money is, you get the project done early, the designer makes a little money, the owner doesn't spend as much, and the contractor makes what he needs to make to survive. So it's really become, I think the industry has moved much forward to that and understands. And the other thing we have to do is listen to the owners have to listen, and we do, I know we do, mm-hmm. to the contractors and the consultants relative to how to approach a problem. Just because We don't have a monopoly on doing the right thing. If you have a better way of doing it, it gets us there faster, God bless. There's no pride of authorship. So be open-minded, always respect each other, always respect each other. Because everybody, I did this because I was a laborer, 731, as a young man. I used to go down to the floor and talk to a guy laying stone or troweling concrete and say, how can I get you to go faster? He says, you give me a ramp here, and I guarantee I'll knock 2 months off the job. Guess what? I gave him the ramp, and he knocked 3 months off. So you have to work together. Sorry to jump in. But
you know what, just kind of piggybacking on that, procurement is essential, how we procure these projects. And Marcos, you talked about design bid build or progressive design build. And as we look at those design bid build, is that traditional where the architect designs it, it gets bid out and then it gets built. But the collaborative approach, like Steve was talking about, is more, I think, is an effective tool in our toolbox to going about and procuring. However, there are some bumps in the road with that too. It's not one size fits all for all projects. And more so than that, in the state of New York especially, our procurement laws come out of the state. And so unless we change those laws to be able to procure easily in this progressive design build scenario, we don't necessarily have that tool at our disposal. So it's something that's very important to the New York construction design marketplace to be able to have those abilities legislatively to be able to do just that, collaborate.
So one team, one dream. So with that in mind, Marcos, it seems like public-private partnerships are very trendy in other markets like Canada and Australia. How come they haven't sort of taken off as much in the U.S.? And can you kind of think about what could facilitate better capital flows from the private sector into support infrastructure?
Absolutely. I think the market in the United States is fragmented. It is 50 states and District of Columbia and Puerto Rico, and each state has approached the market very differently. The rules of engagement are different. The procurement is different for, whether it's alternative delivery that is of the design build kind or the P3 kind. And that means that you are reinventing the wheel every time you put a team together, a public-private partnership to go after a concession of some sort, or a toll bridge or a toll highway or an airport. You are literally almost starting from scratch every time that you go from one jurisdiction to the other. Now there are many success case studies, but I think other countries and other regions have approached it very differently. And once you have a model, you usually use that model for a number of years, and then you build on it. I will argue that is one of the biggest, one of the biggest hindrances right now to be able to develop the P3 market, farther in the United States. The other one is that originally, when public-private partnerships were structured in the United States, it was a way to transfer risk to a different party. And I think that transfer of risk really needs to be seen within the lens that reputationally, anybody who's involved in a project is ultimately, is the reputation of everybody in the project. But the client is responsible for the project. So that transfer of risk really has to be realistic. And I think we also have to look at public-private partnerships within the lens of who is best qualified to be able to take on some key components of the delivery of that project. And then we have to become a little bit more creative. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing. It could be a P3 that is not what it used to be in the past, which was, here's the project, and I'll see you in 7 years, and I hope you give me a turnkey, a $3 billion highway with with toll, and you take the revenue, et cetera. It can't be like that in the United States. I think we've seen the risks of doing that and the risk of not being able to leverage private sector money and private sector capital for infrastructure. There are exceptions. I think Port Authority on the aviation side is doing very well and is attracting quite a bit of talent. The MTA has private P3s concessions with on advertising and digital advertising that right now you actually see it being developed very, very well, and you see the results of it in the subway. And there is a public benefit component to all of that. But I think we all collectively have to think differently about developing that market here in the U.S.
Take it away.
I just want to say that one size doesn't fit all. Okay, you got to look at every job. And I will tell you the thing, if you want a successful job, you got to sit around a table and say, what can I control? So as an owner, you control getting permits, for example, dealing with other authorities. You can't, well, you could put it on the contractor, but he doesn't even know who to call. So the contractor will put a big number on it, okay? And never feel good about the job, and you'll get less bids, less competition. The converse, concrete and steel, you own that. You know, you can get that, you know how to get that. In fact, if anything, if you're doing something like a tunnel, you say to them, hey, you guys know how to build a tunnel better than we. You could do it your way versus our way, because if we force you to do it our way, that's not what they're comfortable with. So you got to work with the people, you got to talk to the people, and come up what I call in baseball a sweet spot of where everybody has what they control best, their risk, and that helps projects much more successful. Because if you try and take one of them and fit one size fits all, it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Alas, we're out of time, so I wanted to say, Elizabeth, Steve, Marcos, thank you. And there's clearly a huge topic, and it's very exciting to see all the innovation and transformation that's happening in New York. And I'm looking forward to celebrating it with you together, all these new projects, especially the bus terminal.
I'll be there.
You'll be there. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Lisa.
Thank you. Great job.